Hello.
Hello. Well, I was
Lovely
going
to see
well,
you.
I was going to say, yeah, welcome back to Gresham's.
Thanks.
Because,
it's great to be back.
You were here as a teacher,
Yes.
and you were here last night doing a concert,
Yes.
and you were here to record an album in the summer.
I was.
And you're here to do a masterclass with some of our students today.
Yes.
So how
We had a good time, didn't we?
how was that?
It was great. It was great. I saw, I think, about six people. I think was how many people I saw, and it was very interesting. The rate. I love doing masterclass because you get to see so many different techniques and different approaches to playing, but ultimately it comes down to very, very similar things that I say to everybody, which is usually physical things.
Right.
Which is just, make sure that you're relaxed, make sure the hand is relaxed, and it's very much of that kind of, it's how I was sort of taught and how I teach much more physically. I remember my main piano teacher didn't really teach me anything musical at all. He just taught me, the first thing he taught about was my jaw. And,
Not the first thing you think of with piano.
No, exactly. And he said, oh, my dear, he was German. He said, oh, my dear boy, you are so tight with your jaw, you can't play. Well, what has that got to do with anything? But then as soon as I softened all of this and my neck and everything, then I was able to play much freer. It's something.
Yeah, interesting.
It is. And we had a good session, and Sean played some Mozart, which was very beautiful. And no, it was good.
Well, I think with that last point, that sort of ties in with the question that I thought you might have about technique.
Since when did you get like your fingers so fast?
The speed of, well, it's not necessarily speed, but the looseness of playing came to me when I'd had an injury. I had it's called a ganglion, which is a lump on your hand, which comes from tension in your playing. This is what I was talking to you about. And I had that for a little while, and I went to this new teacher who was 80, German, and he was in London, and he had an amazing lineage of who he had studied with and who they had studied with, and it went back to one of Liszt's pupils. So that kind of generation after them and after them. And he taught me a very different way of playing, and I had to relearn. This was after doing my degree. So I was 24, and I had to relearn how to play the piano, and it took me a year. And I said, well, what about this thing? He said, oh, it will go if you do my exercises, which I did, and it went.
Really?
Within about 3 months. My mum said, hit it with a Bible, which I didn't. And the looseness and speed of it is actually just relaxation. You can't play fast if you're tense.
That's true. With bass and guitar, sometimes when I'm teaching people, they're like, it's like they hang to the side of a building, and they're on. But if my playing, you can just pull my arm off the instrument. It's like, if you're doing a gig for 2 hours, if you tense,
absolutely,
like that, doesn't work. You have to. Relax.
It's and people sometimes say to me at the end of a concert, "Oh, your fingers must be really tired," and they're not at all. My arm is tired, or my arms are tired because I've been, doing all of this stuff, but not in the fingers. The fingers have to be very, very relaxed, all the time. Freedom.
So there you go.
Freedom is the key.
Can I ask about last night? You had the music.
Yeah.
But you're not reading the music.
No.
I mean, is it? You can't be. I mean, you must know. So is it there just as a sort of?
It's a comfort thing.
Yeah.
And it's something less than I have to concentrate on. I can't cope with concentrating on, will I be able to remember all the music? And in performance, you get all those demons saying things like, you're going to mess it up. You're going to forget it.
Yes.
And you just, ultimately you then have this argument in your mind of then eradicating that and saying, no, I'm not going to forget it. But I can't be dealing with all that conversation in my head, so I'd rather just have it there, and then I don't have to think about it. And I don't even think, well, it just doesn't come into my mind. but I don't look at it.
Because
Occasionally,
sometimes
I'm
I
like,
get the
where
extra
am I?
stress of like turning the page.
Yeah, and at one
and then
point,
you do it, and then sometimes they've got a life of their own, and they turn back.
and there was one point where I went to turn the page. I didn't even know where I was. I thought, oh, I better just turn the page.
Didn't look like
and it didn't actually turn. And I was like, oh, forget it. I'll just just carry on playing. But the fact that it's there is just a little something.
So the thing is to know the piece inside out. I reckon that's the thing.
Every corner.
Yeah. Because you don't want to be trying to remember it when you're playing it. You want to be. It's about
And
the
it's
performance,
also
isn't it?
it is, and it's not about the speed. It was something Rubinstein said. It's not about the speed of the notes that is the most impressive thing. It's about the gaps in between. Now that means that when you have the ability to take time, you take time. Makes sense?
A lot to remember, but it's good to be starting, on the right path and thinking about those things.
It is.
From now, I would say, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask about you used to teach here, but now you're living and working in Vienna?
In Vienna.
Or living in Vienna?
Living in Vienna. And performing.
And how's that?
Wonderful.
I bet it is.
It's a little different. The Viennese are... it's so funny because they consider music, and if you're a musician, to be something very natural. They don't consider it to be something else, or something that you do on the side. They or going to the opera is something, oh, well, why do we, it's not a big thing. It's just part of their, well, that's what they do. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It's that mentality of, well, it's in our system.
Yes.
Rather than something either elite or something more cultured than what they usually do. It's already there. I mean, it's there. It's everywhere in Vienna. So music is very much just part of society, which is very refreshing.
Yes.
They're a little, I mean, as you might imagine, the Viennese are very conservative. So, certain things are a little different. How they play is very correct. There's no room for anything else. But it's beautiful.
But that's I would say your style is maybe not like that.
No, I'm not. So I'm slightly rubbing against it. But at the same time, they like, oh, that's something different. They might not do it, but they're open. They're getting better. But also just to walk around streets where Mozart walked, or Beethoven walked, or Haydn, or, I mean, the list goes on. Bruckner, or, Mahler, they all were there. Schubert.
Do you remember? I just thought that.
It's just fascinating.
That Heineken advert. Do you remember?
Which
I don't know why, but it just made me think of him walking around the streets when they knock on his door and say, "Hey, what about your unfinished symphony?"
I don't know.
And then he said, "Well, what about my unfinished Heineken?" And then they all went down the beacon. I think it was him.
I don't know. I can't remember.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was you came in the summer to record an album with your compositions.
My own work.
For the Macmillan
Yes.
research.
This came about because of my orchestra in London, and I have friends, musicians, who've survived cancer, and it was very interesting to me to find out what they turned to musically at those moments.
Right.
For the such long treatment, when they're just sat there with so much going on and consideration, to what music did they listen to? I was sort of fascinated by that. Some people said they couldn't listen to anything. Some people said they wanted something very aggressive, something very passionate. They didn't want ambient, stuff.
Yes.
One girl said to me, "Please don't write anything with dolphins singing in it."
Yes.
And I just thought, gosh, this is really interesting because it ran from such a massive extreme. And then one of my favorite pieces is Les Illuminations by Benjamin Britten, which is poetry by Arthur Rimbaud, who wrote his poetry in London. And it's the journey of what a poet is inspired by during the day to what he's inspired by at night, and the difference of that. I thought, gosh, that could really work musically. So what you're inspired by during the day is very different to music at night. So the story is of a poet and his journey into the underworld. And as a result, the music changes from classical music into more dance music. And therefore it gives a huge extreme of style. And what we're going to do with Macmillan is at every live performance we're going to fundraise for them on tour. And
lovely. So we recorded the piano in the summer here. I like to think because you like the piano and you like
and it was wonderful to be here and to come back and and have that with the journey. So when people are listening to it, it was recorded in, and the fact that it's by Benjamin Britten. He wrote the song cycle based on the poetry. Yeah. It seemed to make sense.
Absolutely.
So yes, we recorded the piano here, and then we recorded the orchestra in Abbey Road in July.
That's been done?
That's been done. Okay. We're in the mixing stage now, putting the two things together.
Right.
And trying to gel them.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a jigsaw, but it's okay.
Yeah, but how's it sounding?
It'll be amazing.
Yeah.
It will. It'll be it'll be great. It's something no one's ever done before. Putting classical music with dance music, as in real, full on, And then there's orchestral stuff, and it's a big journey.
And are you going to tour that album? And last night, the concert last night, was that a one-off here, or is that part of a tour?
No, that was a one-off performance of that program. But I've got a concerto next week at St. Martin in the Fields. Oh no, I'm playing Moonlight Sonata next week as well. But I'm also playing at the Maltings in Wells. So I'm here, as well as being in Vienna. I come back all the time. So it's wonderful to be back.
Lovely. Well, thanks for being generous with...
It's my pleasure.
Everything.
My pleasure. And it was great to work with the students as well. It was super. Some wonderful talent here. Yeah. Wonderful.
Well, there's a lot of good young pianists, musicians coming through. I think there's a feeling all the great students leave and you think, oh my goodness, that's it. But there's mercifully there's the next lot coming through.
And the facilities couldn't be better. They couldn't be better. An all Steinway school. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. Very fortunate to be here.
Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.